Sarah, and welcome back to another episode of Talking Fast. Alongside me, like every week, is manager Jacob, who's got these speedy shades on.
Sarah,
what?
I'm getting close to my first marathon of the year here.
And this leads into what you're drinking right now.
Well, when this episode comes out, I think it'll be 9 days until I'm ready to go. So I'm trying to get pounding down some electrolytes here. So I got my bottle of Gatorade. I got my shades on
Your
that you
speedy
gave
shades,
me
yeah.
from the Nike movie. And I mean, Nike is the fastest kind of running gear anyway. So yeah, I'm ready to go.
And I think it's significant to note that Jacob is drinking Gatorade, and Gatorade followed Talking Fast on Instagram, a few weeks ago. And it was the first time Jacob's like freaked out about something. He like sends it to me immediately and goes, look who just followed me on Instagram.
Exactly. This was all kind of a setup to be talking about this because we have questions and we need answers.
So it's been keeping Jacob up at night why Gatorade follows Talking Fast, myself, and him.
It's not just the show. It's not just, I wouldn't understand you, you know?
Okay, but it's also
the
you.
show, maybe.
Yeah.
But why are you also following me, Gatorade?
So anyways, Jacob's running a marathon, the Toronto Marathon, in 9 days, and he needs a sponsor.
I'm not kidding. Go look at my TikTok. I have a TikTok with so many views on it. That is about Gatorade because this race, I'm doing the marathon this time. I did the half marathon last year, but at the end of it, I was holding an orange Gatorade bottle, and I did a self Gatorade shower. And behind me, I sprayed some guy in the face, and like one of the route photographers caught the moment and actually reached out to the guy. I found him because he was from Ireland, and I tweeted him and I was like, sorry, man, I hit you in the face. And he was like, it's all good, mate. Like, I needed it.
That sounded Australian. I'm not going to lie to you. So I'm sorry to those that are just listening to the podcast, not watching it. It's so distracting talking to you right now with those sunglasses on because I cannot see where your eyes are. So
do you want me to take them off for the rest of this?
Yeah, maybe. But you can save them for your marathon. Anyways, also say is if you're going to be watching the Toronto Marathon that's happening on May 7th?
Sunday, May 7th.
Look out for Jacob. Izzy and I are going to make a sign. We'll do a little cheering section and cheer on Jacob.
Please,
he does his
I'm
marathon.
really going to need them. Sarah, what are you drinking this week?
Right now, I'm just drinking I'm going to mess up the name. And I was at the launch event of this. It is the caramel something cold brew.
It's
caramel,
a Starbucks
It's a
drink.
Starbucks caramel. Do they have it written on the side?
Probably.
Oh, grande salted caramel, sweet cream, cold brew. Cream foam, cold. I don't know what it's called. It's caramel. It's iced.
Is it good?
It's fine. I don't think I'm a cold foam. Cold foam, is that what it's called? What's like sweet cream foam? I don't
no
know.
idea.
I'm not. I tried it. We're not really a fan. Please let me know if you love
Are you like
this
a complicated Starbucks order type of person?
No,
Do you know these people who walk in and they're just like, do you ever see those TikToks that pop up? And they're like, oh, here's like a secret
when I was
order.
in
I'm like, I don't know how to even say those
when
words.
I was in Alabama, the sorority girls, first of all, I was the only person with a hot coffee. It was a 50-person lineup for coffee. I got my Grande Pike with oat milk classic, and every other drink was an iced drink. They all had strawberries floating in them, and they had like the whipped cream and all this stuff. And there are these like little sorority girls that are drinking these venti ice drinks that
Listen,
I'm not
trying to calorie shame here,
minutes.
but like those things got to be like 8,000 calories.
A million
also,
percent.
if there's like whipped cream, I once went in and I like asked for it was like a cold drink, and someone's like, oh, do you want whipped cream on that? I was like, do I want whipped cream on my cold beverage?
Anyways, this is not just an entire episode ranting about
I do love Starbucks though. I do love Starbucks.
But that's what I'm drinking this week.
What are you reading or watching this week, Sarah?
You know, I've been in and out of my reading slump, and when I was on the plane today actually, I really got into romantic comedy. It's called romantic comedy.
Okay, not a movie.
No. It's called romantic comedy, and it was one of Reese's book club picks for April. And it's really cool because it's set at like SNL. It can't be called SNL, obviously, but it's about like a writer on SNL and then that week's guest and musical guest falling in love. Okay. And so it's like, I love like behind the scenes, like entertainment stuff. So I love it because it feels like preparing for an episode of SNL. So
is there like a Pete Davidson character in it?
Yeah, 100%.
Is there really?
Yeah, who ends up marrying like a pop star.
No.
Yeah. Like it hits on all of those things. The whole concept of it is like it's like women's like literary fiction where it's about like how really hot girls end up with like subpar guys, but like it never happens the reverse. Like you never see like this like extremely attractive, really famous guy with like an average woman, for lack of a better term, and that's kind of like the whole thesis of the book. But it's really good.
And you can read on planes. You can do this.
Okay, I can, but I got it's not car sick, it's plane sick. But I got plane sick today
we
we were landing because it was like I was trying to romanticize my plane. not my plane. I was trying to romanticize
my. You're here for scoop, folks. Sarah's got a PJ.
No, I wish. Actually, those would scare me. And I was like staring at the window, looking at the sea and town. I'm like, oh my god, I'm home. Like, listen to my music. And I was reading though at the same time, and it just like made me feel sick. Yeah.
To have like circle a little bit.
Yeah,
it's always the worst.
it was exactly. So what about you? What are you reading or watching?
Okay, I'm watching something, and I'm not quite done. I'm gonna after this watch the last 2 episodes of it, but I'm hooked. The newish show, Jury Duty. Have you heard about
the
this?
one about the guy that he's the only one not in on it, right?
Yes.
It's
so
all over my TikTok
it's like a
for you
fake
page.
Court case that was set up, and it's shot as if it's just like documenting a group of people as they fulfill their jury duty. But there's like a whole case that's happening, and like it's kind of like wonky of what's happening in the case, and maybe not as believable, but the way they shoot it and set it up, you wouldn't know any better if you were the person who didn't know, because there's one guy that doesn't know what's happening, and there's one celebrity on it, James Marsden.
I was gonna say James Marsden is famous enough that you would recognize him.
And
now.
he is so funny in it because he just like plays up this like kind of douchebag celebrity actor guy, and then there's so many.
Oh, is he playing himself?
He's playing himself as if he
also was there.
It's so funny, and I'm hooked on it. And the guy. Hopefully it doesn't change in the next 2 episodes, but the guy who is the only person who doesn't know what's happening on the show is the sweetest guy. He's just looking out for people and like, kind of keeping them in check.
Okay, well, what are you listening to?
Okay, really long story short, you got to check out my TikTok for like this. I asked you before the episode, Sarah, you don't know who this is. The Moffats.
I thought you said Muppets at first. No, I don't know
Not
who
the
the
Muppets. The
Moffats.
The Moffats were and are 4 Canadian brothers who were in
they're Canadian.
Yeah, a boy band.
Is their last name Moffat?
The Moffats. Yeah, they're the Moffats. The Moffat brothers. So the 4 of them were in a Canadian boy band ish during like the late 1990s and early 2000s.
Okay.
I was hooked on their music.
Wow.
There's one song called Bang Bang Boom that I honestly think I added it to a Spotify playlist called Best Songs Ever, and it was for the longest time just that song. And anyway, I was obsessed with this song, so I was like, listen, I got to befriend the Moffats. So,
you have to befriend them.
Yeah, and this is something a conversation that I had 2 years ago. So I have been DMing the Moffats every couple of months for 2 years
like
straight.
Their official page or like them individually?
Their official page.
Okay, that'd be creepy if you were going.
DMs have just been going off into no land. No one's ever, the thing never came up.
So you're trying to use the podcast right now as a catalyst.
Well, okay. No, I have an update because what I would do is say early morning, variations of that, which is the first lyric in that song, Bang Bang Boom. And my hope was that they would say, got Mona Lisa by my side, which is the next lyric in that song. So anyway, it didn't happen for 2 years. So I made a TikTok about it. And I was like, listen, do you know the Moffats or are you the Moffats? Please finish the lyric. Lo and behold, shout out Amy Sutherland and her friend, an old friend of mine from way back where I grew up. She knows someone who knows the Moffats who reached out and guess what?
They commented on your TikTok?
The lyric. They got back to me.
Oh, that's so wholesome. I need to go watch this now.
Yeah. So if anyone is not aware of the Moffats, go listen to Bang Bang Boom. That is what I'm listening to.
They should
this
send you
week.
some merch or something because they're gonna have new listeners now. Because myself and Izzy had no idea who that was. Please comment or send us a note if you knew who the Moffats were. Because no, I don't. And I'm a 96.
What are you listening to, Sarah?
Okay, so Sam Hunt is coming to Toronto. I've been listening, like Haley and I, when we were driving like down the dirt roads. Yeah, I know Haley from Toronto.
I know where this is going.
So there's this new Sam Hunt song called Outskirts, and Sam Hunt is like bangers only. He's so good.
So good.
So hot too, but he's so good. Okay, anyway, so he has this song and it goes, in like the bridge, it goes, and I wouldn't be living in this condo hanging out with Haley from Toronto.
Huge.
Jacob has a Haley. I have a Haley.
It is so fun to sing.
It's so fun to sing. Okay, so now picture this. Haley, Graham, and I is sitting in Nashville. We've been there for 2 hours. We go to this bar.
Yeah.
And it's these like 2 guys just like on stage, obviously some of the best like musicians you'll ever hear in your life. And they're just playing at a 3 p.m. time slot on a Wednesday.
Which is wild. I didn't know how much live music is just nonstop happening.
It's crazy. And so they start playing this song. It's legitimately, we order our drinks. Our first drinks, like girls trip starts, they start playing that song.
Oh,
I look at Haley and Haley's like, don't do it. The second they start singing it, I get my phone out and I start screaming at the top of my lungs. And I wouldn't live in this condo hanging out with Haley. I'm like pointing at Haley, screaming. It's us and a bunch of like elders in this bar.
Yeah,
Like it's
yeah.
us. And they're all looking like, what? Anyway, so I've convinced Haley that when we go to the concert, she's going to wear a t-shirt that says Haley from Toronto.
Oh, that's so good. That's
even though the song is like not real, the song is like about what would have happened if him and his wife didn't get together.
I was singing this in the shower when the song first came out, like 2 weeks ago or something like that. I started playing it. I would listen in the shower and I put it on repeat for 3 times, and then I had to go and like stick my arm out of the thing and like put it on repeat for another few times because I was just singing it so many times. But then by the 5th time, I was like, oh, it's actually like not a good thing about Haley from Toronto.
No, I know. But
anyways, you know what? Still fun.
So it's gonna be so fun to belt at BuzzStage this summer.
Huge.
So Jacob, we're on episode 15 of the podcast already, which is kind of crazy. And I wanted to just like reset, do a little vibe check. And I felt like this would be a good opportunity to do just another little Jacob and Sarah solo ep. Because we haven't done one since the first episode.
I know, we're taking it back to the roots.
Back to all the way 15 weeks ago, back to our humble beginnings. But I did want to talk about different things that I'd say we get in the voicemail segment a lot, but we never have enough time to actually elaborate on. And I mean, we're so great at giving advice. So naturally.
Did we get some good questions?
No, we did. So we kind of got some like big topics. So I'm going to call this the segment, what do you want from us? I don't know why.
What do you want from us?
What do you want from us? We're talking here.
That's like our like cast off if we give them bad advice.
Yeah. What do you want from us? That's kind of the gist of it. So what people wanted from us, the first thing that they wanted was talking about living in the city. So I wanted to preface this by saying that like it doesn't matter where you're listening from. I think any of the stuff that we're going to talk about applies to like any city. We can only speak to living in Toronto
or a big city.
Or a big city, but I think some of the stuff will transfer over.
Yeah, for sure.
Regardless. So people send us DMs and messages, and you can do the same if you want to have a topic that we discuss on another solo ep. If you like this, please let us know. And if you don't tell us. We'll just ignore it. So our first topic is going to be living in the city. And one of the first questions or comments that we got is, it would be so interesting to know this. People really do glorify and romanticize moving and living in downtown Toronto. I want to know the real tea. Jacob's favorite.
I love tea. I'm ready for this.
Is it worth it? What are the downsides? I'm sure the pros outweigh the cons, but what are the cons that people don't talk about? So first of all, I think we should preface this. How long have you been living in a major city for?
See, I'm coming up. It's gotten to the point where I can't even remember. It's either 14 years or 15 years.
Because did you never move home after school?
I did for like a few weeks.
Okay, that doesn't count. But you've like, yeah, okay. I'm going into year 9. So this is my 9th year living in Toronto.
So, coming up on a decade then too.
Yeah, I will start considering myself Torontonian after a decade. That's what I always said to myself.
Okay, the question's phrased in an interesting way though too, because I think that some of the cons, like the biggest cons, are the ones that people talk about. The main one is like it's expensive to live in the
cost
city.
of living. Yeah. So for context, we both went to school here, and I think you really get jaded when you go to school here to like what the cost is from the start.
Yeah.
I remember I paid for my own university and everything, but my parents, I was fortunate, like they helped subsidize my rent, air quotes, by like a couple $100s a month, just because they were like, you can't help it that all your friends went to school in Peterborough where it costs $360 a month for an apartment, whereas like you're paying $750 like or something. This is also like 7 years ago. Yeah. It's not that cheap anymore. But.
And TMU is an interesting school as well because it's like what do they call it? Like a commuter school. There aren't a lot of spaces in residence. So it's not the same as going to like maybe a mid-sized city where a university campus is huge and there are a lot of residences and you're living in college dorms and that kind of thing.
No, you're living in condos.
You're like straight to the condos, apartment buildings. Yeah, I kind of lived all over the place and like rents varied a little bit, but you're kind of thrown into it from the beginning.
Yeah, and I think, well, one thing I did, and it kind of goes to another question that we got about how do you afford Toronto life? So I think this all kind of goes hand in hand is like when I first was looking for our first condo, my roommates Kayla and Alexis and we lived in a 2+ den where Alexis literally lived in essentially a closet.
Okay, in my last year of university, I had a friend who lived in a closet.
Yeah,
we literally put a door.
No, that's what we did with Lex too. We did like a sheet or whatever.
Well, okay, I didn't pay for this. Her mom did, but like fully hired a handyman to like frame in a door on a closet.
I know other people have done that though too, and it's crazy.
But sheet like is the same thing, or like the solarium.
Yeah, the solarium was a classic. So I think one thing that people do is like you get like crafty a little bit with it. Like I think
have
you
to get
have
creative,
to. You have to. So like
and it's tough to find an apartment sometimes for not only like what's available, but what's available to rent for people who, you know, are moving to a big city for the first time, who might be moving to a city because they're moving for school, or maybe they just don't have an amazing credit history because they just haven't been building up their own credit. And that's something that a lot of people ask for when you're getting your first apartment or any apartment, is like a credit check, which is something that I learned also when you're like getting your first apartment, is like the paperwork that you need too.
And I think it's there's other like things when you come like the pros and cons, and then when you're moving to a city, like so I get a lot of DMs about this, and I kind of have my like typical answer is you need to check on what you prioritize. Do you prioritize being close to the core because you spend a lot of nights out and you spend a lot of time at work and whatever, so maybe then it's more valuable for you to live in a walking distance because then you don't have to pay to take transit? Or is it more valuable for you, you'd rather be in a more quiet area, maybe you want to live a little bit more north, but you have to take the TTC every day and commute. Maybe your job allows you to work remote, so you can pick whatever community or whatever area of the city you want to live in. So you have to remember at your core, if you're moving to a city, any city, not just Toronto, it would apply the same to like living in New York and like Brooklyn versus Queens versus Manhattan, is what do you value? What do you prioritize? I've always prioritized being a walking distance to work. That is a non-starter for me. I love walking to work. It's like my me time. So I've always lived within a 20-minute walk to work or school. It was the same way at school. I lived within a 20-minute walk to school. So then I didn't have to pay to take the TTC a lot. So that was like, what, $120 monthly that I just then didn't have to pay.
And then for me, on one thing that I consider as well is like, because I work from home. So one thing that I prioritize is like, okay, let me pay a little bit more for rent to have a spot that like I feel very comfortable in, because I'm spending a lot of time at home. Which is, you know, the one benefit that I have to weigh against like the sacrifices of, in this case, more money to pay for rent. One other thing to jump back on what you were saying about how do you afford it though too, is I think Toronto, and I would bet that this is like a through line for any major city, is like it's also kind of like a side gig city.
I was gonna say there's not a time in my life where I've never been not been working two jobs. Maybe my one job at Yahoo, my first job, was the only one I didn't, but that's because the hours were insane and I couldn't not work two jobs. But it is a side gig city. Like my sister is a great example. Like she has worked for like this incredible tech company for like years now, but she's always served as well. Cause she's like, I'm not giving up that patio season money. Like
100%.
everybody, almost everyone in this city has a side job, and not necessarily because you have to, because a lot of time you do have to, but also I think a lot of people just like are busy and are always in a rush and go and enjoy it. I think people like having different parts of their life here, and it's very normal to have multiple jobs here, to work at Starbucks in the mornings or to still be serving, and the servers make so much money that it's like a great gig to have
also
here.
A good way to do it. I think sometimes this is how I kind of always thought about it, and this is actually how I kind of like stumbled into doing like management of creators full time
as a side gig,
because it was a side gig when I had my first job out of university.
Oh wow.
That I was kind of moonlighting as it, and like going into the conference room and taking calls, closing deals for people like during working hours is the other thing. But essentially saying like, okay, I'm gonna have my budget broken down for like all of the essential items, rent, food, transportation, those sorts of things. Those need to be covered by like a paycheck that I can depend on. And that can vary for everyone, right? Of like what scale that looks like and whatnot, but not spending over that unless you have it. And that's where like the side gig comes in to handy, because like, okay, if someone has a serving job on top of something, for example, for a long time I was also like doing freelance copywriting on the side. Then I would treat that kind of money
as your fun money.
As the fun money. Let's go to some more concerts. Yes, I can go up to this cottage weekend with some friends because I have this like other pool that I'm drawing from.
We both came to the city in a very different time where like we assumed that one day we would be like owning houses here or like whatever, like very quickly. Not very quickly, but you know what I mean? Like it was very
that was
different
an option for most people.
For us, even like even 9 years ago moving here, like I remember my parents like being like, oh, we should just like invest in a condo and then you can rent for it. And they never did. If only. And now you're like, oh my God, like why did we not have the foresight to do that? But let's go back to that young Sarah moving to the city. And what are the steps to moving to a city? Obviously we went through school, but what are some of the steps that somebody could take now if they're moving to a big city for the first time?
Okay, one thing that I didn't have when I moved here, and yes, I came here for school, but I was also very scared when I came here. Like I thought I was going to move to Toronto. I'm from Waterloo, right? So relatively small city. But
Still
also I was just like, you know, not the same person I am now. And I was a little nervous coming to Toronto. I think that probably a lot of people would probably feel the same way.
In what context?
I was like, ooh, it's a huge city. I'm going to get mugged. I'm going to like not afford rent. I'm going to, who knows, like a ton of things. It was just very overwhelming to go from like this very comfortable place that I was to now being this big, scary city.
I think you have a point there though, going back to the cons that we were talking about of living in Toronto. Obviously the cost is one. I do think it would be irresponsible us not to address the fact that like the safety, especially with women and people of color in this city is like not great right now. So this is just a reminder that if you live in Toronto, make sure you read up on the candidates for mayor and vote for a mayor that you think will help protect you and protect us and protect the city as we move forward, because it's been bad
and very easy to check if you're going to be on the voters list, or if not, you can just register and you'll be good to go. We had
such a bad voter turnout last time that it was like
municipal elections are always abysmal, but like it would take a very small, like probably all the listeners, all the listeners that were here were voting in the election, we could probably swing it. It's that few votes
low.
Could probably
so just
swing
a reminder, because that like the safety of the city could be in the hands of the next person.
And that's what I was going to kind of talk about too, with like be feeling nervous and whatnot. What I didn't have was essentially a community. I didn't know anyone. I meant to move here with 2 or 3 friends from high school who kind of chickened out and stayed at home and decided to go to a different program. So I didn't have my like close core group of friends that I thought I was going to have when I moved to the city. So having that, or if you can optimize to try to find that when you move to the city, it's huge. It's something we've talked about a lot on this podcast, but like recreational sports, going to different community events, that kind of stuff, or just trying to find a roommate. There are a ton of different roommate resources on Facebook and other platforms.
Yeah, there's a ton of like Toronto. So for like logistically wise, if you're physically trying to move here, there's a couple ways you can do it. There's a lot of Toronto home groups. Toronto Home Zone, I think, is one of them. It's people that post either if they need a roommate, it's posting if you need like a renter. All of that stuff is there. That's a great resource. I'm sure other cities have it as well. Yeah, I don't know how it works everywhere else, but in Toronto, you can use a realtor to help you find a place to live, and it's no cost to you. A lot of
people don't know that. It's no cost to you. You can reach out to a realtor, and they'll take you on like visits to the apartments that you're curious about, and
cost you $0.
The cost is deferred to the agent the person that owns it.
Yeah, exactly. So it doesn't cost you anything, and they can help you with all the paperwork. It's amazing. Yeah. So you make sure you use that as a resource. And there's also tons of, if you're, especially like most of our listeners, if you're like a young woman, there's a lot of Facebook groups in Toronto too for like young women. I know my friend Naomi started one as well. If you need it, the link, just DM me. I think those are all resources to be able to like find that community or find those people to live with. Because also, as we talk about cost and how expensive it is, living with a roommate is a very, I think, crucial way to survive living in this city.
Either you or one of your friends has to be like the person who gets put in the broom closet for
eventually. Yes, exactly. Everyone has to go through it. I hope that covered some of it. If you guys have any more questions about,
it's such a big topic. Keep asking the questions.
Keep asking. But
what do you want from us?
What do you keep asking? But what do you want from us? I love it. I think that works. Okay, so the next thing that we got a bunch of messages about. So I basically broke this up into 2 messages. Get it? Like phone message. 2 messages. The next part was relationships. It's no surprise. Jacob and I are both in LTRs, long-term relationships. Did you
had to think about that?
I had to think about that. And so we got a lot of questions about relationships. So the first one that I want to go with was best advice for someone who's single in their 20s and feels behind.
Oh,
that's the worst.
That is the worst. I can't really relate because I was in a long-term relationship for almost all of my 20s.
As someone that's in a long-term relationship for all of her 20s right now.
But everyone's on a different timeline. I was in a long-term relationship for almost my entire 20s and then got out of it.
If this makes one person feel better, I didn't even kiss a boy till I was 17. And then I got into a long-term relationship at 19 and I've been with that same boy since 19. So like the timelines, it doesn't mean anything. Like I felt so behind moving to this city. I felt so behind like in every aspect of it. I see a lot of the conversation on TikTok too about women who have never been in relationships before and they're my age. They're 26, they're 27, 28, which is like very normal now. And I think it's because the standards that especially like young women hold men to is a lot different. And that's like completely okay. I think it's important to just like know that you're right. Everyone's on their own timeline, and it has nothing to do with you.
Yeah, and it is more normal. I did have a big, like half of my friends growing up got married at like 19 to 22, say. And then the other half are like still single, and we're in our early 30s.
Well, and I also think it like depends on where you live too. Like I like living in a big city, like a Toronto 30-year-old is like a Waterloo 22.
Yeah. But it's also priorities. Like does this person maybe they want a relationship? Right?
I mean, my biggest thing is like, and I always get put in this weird spot because I sometimes feel like I can't give my single friends relationship advice because I'm an old woman.
I love giving unsolicited relationship advice to my single friends.
I do too, but I sometimes feel like it's a lot of like, well, you don't get it. You're not like you have a, you know what I mean? Like I think that's sometimes the mentality. I think like I just think about it. If I was in their shoes and doing it now, the key is you just have to like. It sounds so cliche and so dumb, but like if you're looking for a relationship and that's what you want, you do have to just put yourself out there.
100%.
And I know that's so much easier said than done. But
yeah, and I think it's tough when if you want a relationship, you kind of totally forget about dating and like the importance,
which is so fun, and dating is so fun,
and how you can just like maybe you're on the apps, maybe you're swiping, getting a couple swipes in there, find a cutie, and then you're like, oh, I want to date this person. Maybe I see a relationship with them. But you know what?
But you won't know unless you go on a date.
For sure. Go on a date. Go on a couple dates. Maybe another cutie comes by. Go on another date with them.
That's
you know what I mean?
But that's the biggest thing that I feel like is changing like our like dating culture is nobody dates. Okay,
it's so weird.
I'm gonna put my friend Stan on blast
Stan.
Because I will say, oh, like so you're dating this girl. He goes, well, she's not my girlfriend. And I go, yeah, you're dating her. If you were the act of going on dates with a person means, and this is before, he does have a girlfriend now, but this is before, he'd always like argue with me about it. And I'm like, no, the act of going on dates is like, you're dating someone. You can be dating multiple people.
Out if you want to be in a relationship with this person.
Yeah, for sure. You're like, it's like test driving a car.
That's really not something that you can get on swiping on an app.
So my biggest
Instagram
piece
profile.
of advice, I was only on the apps for a hot minute, but when I tell you I was on the apps, your girl was on the apps. I like loved.
Haley, Nolan, listen, we love you guys, but like the apps are fun. You would probably agree.
It's how you approach them though. I have like friends that despise them. If you approach them as like, get the little ego boost if you need one. It's fun. If you love talking to new people, we literally have a talk show.
For sure. Yeah.
So we love talking to new people. But don't talk for too long. The biggest mistake you can make is talking to them for so long that then you know all these things about them.
The apps,
and then you
chatting.
Literally, it should be your prompts on Hinge should be something fun that you made a conversation started, like a one quick back and forth. And then you go, great, I'd love to talk with you about that over a coffee, or I'd love to talk to you about that over a drink. Like, just make it so quick and easy. And if dinner intimidates you, don't make dinner your first date. Make coffee or a walk or a drink your first date.
No, don't go to walk.
They're all easy outs.
I can't support.
You dated in COVID though, so I guess like walks.
No, I refused. I refused. I was just like, listen, I won't meet up with you. I'm not a walk person. I know
okay, that's fine. That's why I'm just saying.
You're right
options.
Though.
Like an easy out, something that's easy. Don't commit to a full dinner if you're like, this guy's a dud in the first 15 minutes.
100%.
At least everywhere else you can get an out, but don't stay. For the love of God, if you listen to one piece of advice from me, don't stay on the apps. That's my advice for dating in your 20s. But the main one is don't be.
You know what's good too?
Nervous.
A slice of pizza.
Interesting. Like a nice
I've actually
slice.
Never done that. I just made that
up. Okay, so now you've taken our advice. You're in love. You found the love of your life.
Yeah.
How do you keep things in a long-term relationship fun and exciting?
Ooh.
And I don't know in which context. There's probably a million contexts they mean, but I'm just going to go in the sense of like continuing to date. I think that's a really important thing.
Yes.
And probably the most important, especially when you end up living with the person too, then that's like even more time you're spent together.
Okay, because it's fun too, because when you get to a point in your relationship where you're really comfortable with someone, and this is what I enjoy, but also what probably other people enjoy too, is like, listen, there's nothing better than just like laying around on a Sunday not doing anything. That feels good. But you're right. On the other side of it is like you have to go and find those other things to do that like keeps it interesting, keeps things to talk about. Just like expose yourself to different environments. I love going to the museum.
A museum?
The AGO.
The AGO, yeah, because that gives you something to talk about. I also, as somebody that's been in a relationship for our 7-year anniversaries in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
I don't text Nolan, straight up. Like, we just don't text during the day, unless it's like urgent, or it's like, if you looked at our message, you'd be like, these people hate each other. It's not true. It's just the fact that it's like, when I'm away, it's different, but we only text about things that are like crucial, like what time are you gonna be home, this and that, because then you have things to talk about. So it kind of goes hand in hand with like the advice of when you're on a dating app and you talk to people too much and then you meet up with them in person, it's like you have nothing to talk about. I think not texting a lot really has helped us always have a conversation, like, and something to talk about. And then also just like having dates planned separately, or like things that you always do together. So like we have our shows that we watch that's like exclusively like laptops are away, like we sit there and watch the show together, then like so Survivor, and then we go on Survivor Reddit and talk about like things like that are just like truly just yours. I think is really important in a long-term relationship. And I also we always say, just don't put too much pressure on things, on hitting milestones. I think that's a big issue that people get when they're in a long-term relationship. I mean, I get the engagement question every fucking day of my life on TikTok. But I think people put too much pressure on long-term relationships once they get into like that 5-6 year mark. And as long as you just ignore that and you don't allow that to affect how your timeline, if we go back to the timeline, things will work, then you'll be fine.
Yeah, 100%. And was there not a question I was trying to find it on here about, because now met, dated, fell in love, spent time together. Not everything's going to be roses though, right?
No.
We're going to have some fights.
There's lots of thorns.
So how do we work through with someone that we're in a long-term relationship with? How do we get to the goods?
Yeah, I think the question was about how do you bring up something that's bothering you, or
that was the phrasing.
Yes, yeah. How do you bring up something that's bothering you without starting a full-blown fight over it?
Right.
And I mean, it's cliche, but communication is like the only way that like any relationship will survive. I think it's about understanding how you communicate and how your partner receives criticism or communication as well. I think that's a really important aspect, and you won't know until you've had the discussion. Like, are they somebody that, I don't know, like I just think that sitting down and having a conversation about something that's bothering you will always be better than if it's built up inside you, then you make a passive aggressive comment, and that's usually where the fight comes from. At least in my experience.
And listen, I've not been good at this in the past, for sure, but like one thing that I'm working on and trying to focus on too is like talking about communication. Communication doesn't mean exactly what you were kind of talking about, not starting a conversation by picking a fight. Oh, you did this is that. I think the best advice that I ever got, and it was from my therapist, because we were talking about this type of a conversation specifically, but approaching that conversation from the perspective of, this is how I feel about this, for right? Sure. You're talking about, maybe something happened. Who knows? It doesn't matter what had happened, but there are definitely going to be two sides to the story. And maybe someone was in the wrong and they, did something that hurt your feelings.
Yeah, but that's whatnot. Not even because that's not the point.
But the point is exactly, oh, I felt this way when this happened. And that gives the conversation a lot smoother of a start.
For sure.
Because you're not accusing someone of something, which on both sides of a relationship can happen often. And I'm speaking from personal experience, is that like getting defensive is something that like is easy to jump to, but is not something that's going to be beneficial, especially with someone that you care about and want to presumably work through things with.
Yeah. And I also think the biggest misconception is that couples don't fight. Like, I think with social media, it's very easy to only see like the pros and like whatever. And I know everyone says that, but like, if you're not fighting, then like, what are you fighting forward to? Right. Like it's almost like that complacency when you're not fighting about something.
Then that's really what's
that's
wrong.
When it's worse. So I think,
and I'm not in a relationship to just like be complacent. You know what I mean?
No,
like,
100%.
I want my partner to help me grow, ideally into a better person.
Exactly. And that's at its core. It's the same with any friendship you're in.
For sure.
I think Tori talked about this. Tori talked about this. Like, your friends and your partner should know that if you're bringing something up, it is not out of a place of spitefulness. It's not of a place that you're wrong or you do this bad and I don't like you for it. No, it's out of a place of love, growth, and wanting to be better. And as long as you approach every relationship in your life like that, then I think you'll be solid.
100%. Go listen to the Tori Webster episode after this.
Wow. So I think our first little solo discussion went smoothly. I think so.
What do you want from us?
What do you want from us?
For anyone who's listening just on audio, Sarah just said I looked like the biggest douchebag on the planet. So picture that while we do this segment.
So to continue the chaos of the Sarah and Jacob solo app here, we basically just did a full-blown mailbag segment is what that felt like. I think we gave some good advice.
I think so.
I mean, what do you want from us? So after that, we figured we don't want to bore you with more advice. If you've made it this far, you deserve some really good content. So this was actually a suggestion from a listener to do a draft. So if you don't know this trend, you basically draft things in life.
Could be anything.
Could be anything.
Pieces of cheese.
Pizza toppings, like for your team. So it's Jacob versus Sarah, and we are drafting 2 different topics today.
The first one, Canadian cities.
So we each get 5 spots on our roster, and then we're also going to have you guys vote on who ended up with the better team.
And to choose who goes first, we're doing rock, paper, scissors.
Okay, it's rock, paper, scissors,
Shoot.
then we go.
Yeah.
Ready?
Wow, we've done rock, scissors, paper, all of us in a row. Oh, Sarah won. She went rock, I went scissors.
Canadian cities. Okay.
I'm going to lose in the first spot, I know it. Oh, unless you do like a wild one. What do you got?
With my first overall pick, the city that I call home, my favorite city in the world.
Coburg?
Okay, that's a town. Toronto, Ontario.
Toronto. I knew you were going to go Toronto. Toronto had to be the number 1 spot.
It had to be in the number 1 spot.
Sarah, I'm following it up. I know that this is probably one that I could have saved for later rounds because you have never been there. I'm going Vancouver.
Wasn't even on my list for consideration.
Oh my!
I've never been there. How am I supposed to judge it? I've only been to the airport.
I mean, I guess.
Great. Okay. Well, with my number 2 overall spot, this also shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody because I'm a half East Coast girl. In the number 2 spot, I'm taking my favorite city in Canada that is not Toronto, Halifax.
Halifax. Okay. Well, you know what? I think I'm coming in with a steal here. This one has both the best of city life and proximity to nature. I'm sorry, but I'm going Calgary.
I knew.
Calgary had to go.
But I needed Halifax, and I thought you would steal it from me on purpose.
I'm not that mean because I got another East Coaster coming up, I think.
Okay, so number 3. So this is the issue. I need my team to be a little bit more like spread out. I can't just go all East Coast at the same time, or else it's not. It doesn't work out that way. And you have all West Coast right now. So coming in at the number 3 spot, I'm gonna go with people sleep on it. Edmonton.
No.
Yeah.
Edmonton was not on my list at all.
I was going with number 3. No, Edmonton.
If I had a top 50, Edmonton would be on it.
Okay, have you been to Edmonton?
Yeah.
Okay, I really enjoyed it when I went. Like,
really?
Shockingly enjoyed it. Yeah.
Listen, I'm sorry, Edmonton. How?
I mean, one, a huge part of our listenership comes from Edmonton. It was great.
Thank you for listening, by the way.
I went to really great cocktail bars in Edmonton.
Cocktail
the bar
bars,
scene
really?
was good. The vibe was great. I actually really enjoyed Edmonton.
Too many trucks.
Number 3,
Too many
Edmonton.
pickup trucks. With my 3rd spot, you're right. I'm too West Coast centric right now. I'm going back all the way over the East Coast there. I'm going with Charlottetown.
I knew I was going to steal it from you early, but I needed a little bit more. I needed to be more spread out.
Charlottetown feels like a small town.
Yeah, it does. Charlottetown's great. Okay, I need some a little bit of culture, so I'm going to go with Montreal in the number 4 spot.
Okay, that was high up on mine too.
Montreal
Okay, a lot of stuff's off the board that I wanted, but you know what? I'm going to show some respect to the city that I come from. I'm going to go Waterloo.
Really? Again, Waterloo was on mine. To round mine out, because again, I want full coast-to-coast representation, I'm going Victoria, British Columbia.
Oh, okay. I haven't been to Victoria. I'd love to.
I haven't been to Victoria either, but I have a very good friend from Victoria, and Tofino's close by. So I feel like that's like
to finish off my list. Listen, I only stayed there once overnight. I hit a dog park and a couple of cafes. St. John.
Yeah.
Shout out New Brunswick.
I didn't even. Wait, there's 2 St. John's.
No, St. John's is Newfoundland.
I want to take one of mine back. I want St. John's instead of Edmonton now.
Sorry, you're going to have to wait until next year. St. John's going undrafted.
I think I forgot about St. John's. Otherwise, I would have picked them over Edmonton.
Ooh.
I was just trying to round out the country.
I apologize.
Okay. Well, anyways, those are our drafts of our Canadian cities, I guess. Next one.
Okay, Sarah, I'm pumped about this one. This one was extremely difficult to nail down for me.
So this next one is pop singers, female.
Yeah.
So female pop singers, and we only get 5 spots.
Rock, paper, scissors again to see who goes first.
Yeah, it doesn't just automatically get to go to you.
No.
I'm so nervous about this one because I know. Oh wait, I wasn't.
Oh, wait.
You screwed that up.
Wait, hold on.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah. Yes.
Shit.
Oh, you know what, Sarah?
Shit. Are you going to take her from me?
I am
Oh my God, no, you're
You know what?
not.
I'm going to switch mine
you're
up
not.
because I think I'm going to get my 1-2 like this. I'm going to bump my 1
No,
to
you're
2.
not. No, you're
nope,
not.
I'm going to leave it. You know what? I'm going to leave it for you. I'm taking Beyonce.
Oh, that is not where I thought you were going.
I know. I would feel disrespectful if I took your number 1.
I honestly am kind of like, oh, I just assumed you were going to. Okay, well, number 1 for me is Taylor Allison Swift. Thank
no
you
one
so much.
saw that.
No
coming.
one saw that coming. But
Listen.
number 2 pick, I guess behind Beyonce, that's fine.
Well, okay, yeah,
She has the most Grammys ever.
exactly.
Is she considered pop?
I would consider Beyonce.
I guess she
pop.
has pop albums, but like her most recent stuff is not pop.
I mean,
If we're getting technical.
we're not going to go to the commission on this one. I don't think.
Okay.
Let's let it slide. This one is pop through and through. You can't fight me on this. This was going to be my number 1 spot. You're going to think that this is wild.
I was going to steal this from you. I think I know who it is.
Were you really? Did you read it?
No?
Okay, then you really don't know who it is.
Oh, okay.
I'm going in my number 2 spot, Kesha.
Okay, you're right. That's not. You were going to go number 1 with Kesha?
Listen, Kesha is an amazing artist, I think.
Okay. No, she is. That's just shocking. Okay.
I have to have Kesha on my team.
Okay. Well, somebody I have to have on my team. She is a Canadian pop princess,
Oh, no.
Canadian
No.
Idol alum.
No,
and,
wait. Oh,
and
okay.
I
wanted her to.
She's a Canadian Idol alum, and she had a song that is almost referenced in Talking Fast, "Call Me Maybe." Carly Rae Jepsen on the number 2 spot on my
Carly Rae was high up on my list. Carly Rae, we love you. Okay, I'm gonna change mine up a little bit then, because I'm gonna need to have a Canadian presence on my list as well. So I'm gonna go down to my list here. We're gonna call up the folks and see if we can get her
in the situation room.
Yeah, I'm going Alessia Cara.
Oh, okay, cool.
And you know what did it for me? I was doing some research earlier today, scrolling through Spotify, doing some research, and it was the Moana track.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That's a good pick. In my number 3 spot, I'm going to go with Cher.
Cher. Whoa, throwback.
I had to text my friend Anastasia, my friend Anastasia was on the podcast. I had to text her to confirm that Cher is, in fact, a pop star. And her response was, no, she's an icon. But I was like, okay, but would she fall in the pop category? I think you can't not have Cher. I need a veteran presence on my team.
I agree with you there. And for the exact same reason, I'm bringing in Britney Spears. I know that she's a little worse for wearing the social media presence these days, but I gotta have her on my squad.
Okay, so I have 2 spots left. In my number 4 spot, I think she represents pop music today. I'm going Dua Lipa.
No, that was gonna be mine. I wanted Dua so high on mine.
So hot. She was.
Oh, that is disappointing.
Dua Lipa.
Okay.
What's
to
your
finish
last
off
pick?
my team, I've watched one of her documentaries 5 times, I think. Demi Lovato.
Wow. Okay.
I think Demi Lovato is an amazing artist.
Yeah, they are, but I was just that's shocking to me.
Yeah.
There's so many other incredible people left on the board. My number 5 spot is going to none other than Lady Gaga.
Okay, you know what?
I saw her in concert like 11 or 13 years ago, and she was incredible. So
I also have a quick list of people that I benched: Olivia Rodrigo, Halsey, Sia, and Ariana Grande. All don't make it.
They didn't
near
make it. Katy Perry was also on mine. Adele, I didn't really know if she was considered pop. Billie Eilish was also on What Potential. I didn't know if all these people. I'm like, you're alternative, kind of like. And then Kelly Clarkson was.
Kelly Clarkson too, and Shadow Pink.
Shadow Pink. Underrated,
and her new song "Don't Stop the Dancing" or whatever
is a banger. Well, thank you so much for listening or watching to another episode of Talking Fast. If you want us to do another draft, let us know what you would like us to draft, and we'll maybe do another solo app. Let me know if you enjoyed it, and please let us know how much you hate Jacob's glasses and fit right now if you're watching it.
And Gatorade, you better get back to us.
Thanks, and we will see you next Wednesday.